The house was a Pinterest dream come true. Giant balloon arches in perfectly coordinated pastel hues stretched across the ceiling, their colors reflecting off the polished hardwood floors below. A dessert table stood at the center of the room, adorned with cupcakes topped with edible glitter and custom sugar cookies shaped like stars, each one meticulously placed as if they were auditioning for an Instagram feed. Kids darted around, giggling and clutching personalized gift bags that sparkled under the soft glow of fairy lights strung along the walls. It was the kind of scene you'd expect to see on a lifestyle blog, where perfection reigns supreme and imperfections are carefully edited out. But beneath this flawless facade, something darker simmered, a tension I had learned to recognize all too well growing up in my family. My name is Emily Carter, and today's event was being hosted by my sister, Amanda. To say she thrives on control would be an understatement. Every detail of her life is curated to project success, from her immaculate home to her perfectly posed social media posts. And then there was me, Emily, the quieter sibling who never quite measured up but somehow always found herself trying anyway. Beside me stood my 7-year-old daughter, Lily, clutching a handmade birthday card she'd spent hours decorating with glitter glue and tiny star stickers. She wore a sparkly headband she'd picked out herself that morning, one she said made her feel like a galaxy. Lily's creativity has always been her armor against a world that can feel overwhelming for someone so sensitive. Before we arrived, she practiced saying happy birthday twice in the car, her voice trembling slightly each time. She even drew 2 little cards, one for each cousin, decorated with hand-drawn stars and signed them with love. As proud as I was of her effort, I couldn't shake the unease settling in my chest. Big crowds have always been hard for Lily, and despite her best intentions, I knew how easily things could go wrong here. We stayed near the food table, exchanging polite small talk with relatives whose faces blurred together after years of strained interactions. I tried not to notice how my sister barely acknowledged us or how my mother gave me that brittle smile, the one that screamed "Don't start anything." My father nodded once before retreating into his usual silence, carving turkey with surgical precision as though it required his undivided attention. Meanwhile, Amanda handed out the gift bags, each one emblazoned with a child's name in glittery letters. They contained stuffed animals, bubble wands, personalized water bottles, and keychains engraved with initials. One by one the kids tore into their treasures, beaming like it was Christmas morning. Then came Lily's turn. She reached for the plain white paper bag thrust toward her, its emptiness glaring compared to the others. No glitter. No name. Just a sticky note slapped crookedly across the front in Amanda's handwriting. Try harder next year. Lily blinked at it, her wide eyes scanning the words again as if hoping they might rearrange themselves into something kinder. Slowly, hesitantly she opened the bag. Inside lay a broken crayon, a used eraser, and a wrapped peppermint candy that looked like it had rattled around in someone's purse for months. Her throat tightened visibly, her small hands trembling as she clutched the bag. She glanced at me, her fingers inching toward mine, seeking reassurance, or maybe bracing for what came next. And then the laughter erupted. Amanda led the charge, her sharp cackle slicing through the air like glass. "She's been acting up lately," she declared, waving a dismissive hand. Interrupting, talking back, crying over nothing. "This is just a little wake-up call." My mother chuckled nervously, chiming in with, "Honestly, it's good for her. You cuddle her too much." Even my father grunted some half-hearted laugh, as though awkwardness itself could pass for humor. The other kids joined in, mimicking the adults without fully understanding why. But Lily? Lily smiled, that tight, trembling smile children wear when they're trying desperately not to cry. My husband Daniel crouched beside her, gently taking the bag from her hands. "You don't need this," he said firmly. "Let's go get some real cake." His voice was calm, steady, a lifeline thrown into chaos. We stood up, neither of us saying a word, and took Lily's hands. Together we walked out of that house like we were fleeing a burning building. No one called after us. No one stopped us. Not even Amanda. Back home, Lily curled up on the couch, staring at the glitter stars on her homemade birthday cards as though they might rearrange themselves into a reason she deserved better. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Was it because I didn't say thank you fast enough?" I knelt beside her, pulling her close. "No, sweetheart," I said, my own voice thick with emotion. "It wasn't your fault. Some people forget how to be kind." As she pressed the cards to her chest like a shield, I felt the weight of everything I'd been carrying for years crash down on me. This wasn't just about Lily, it was about me, about the cycle of neglect and judgment I had sworn to protect her from. For now, though, all I could do was hold her tighter and promise myself that this wouldn't happen again. That night, as Lily slept on the couch with her glittery birthday cards clutched to her chest like a talisman, I sat in the kitchen staring at the folder. It wasn't just any folder, it was years of evidence, carefully collected but never used. Until now. My husband Daniel brewed tea quietly beside me, his movements deliberate, steady. He didn't ask if I was okay because he knew I wasn't. Instead, he slid a mug toward me, the steam curling upward like ghosts of memories I couldn't escape. The truth is, what happened today wasn't an isolated incident. It wasn't even about the sticky note or the broken crayon. This was the culmination of something much deeper, something that had been festering for decades, long before Lily was born, long before Amanda's cruel jokes became weapons aimed at my daughter. It started with me. I can still picture the third-grade classroom where Mrs. Peterson handed me the certificate for perfect attendance. I'd fought through colds and stomachaches all year, determined not to miss a single day. When I got home, I held it up proudly, waiting for my mom to see how hard I'd worked. She glanced at it briefly, then said, "Emma got Student of the Month, you know. That's a much bigger deal." Just like that, my accomplishment disappeared into thin air, overshadowed by my sister's success. Again, it wasn't just the awards. Every milestone felt like climbing a mountain only to realize there was no summit. In high school, when I finally mustered the courage to tell my parents I thought I might be depressed, my mom rolled her eyes. "That's the new trend, isn't it?" she said dismissively. "Everyone thinks they're depressed these days. Find a hobby." Emma chimed in later, calling me dramatic while casually borrowing my phone charger and forgetting to return it. By the time I left for college, I was numb. They mailed me a card a week late with $25 inside and a sticky note that read, "Don't blow it." I didn't blow it. But I also didn't expect them to show up. Not for move-in day, not for graduation. And they didn't disappoint. Birthdays were the worst. Mine were always folded into Amanda's celebrations, even though our birthdays were nearly 2 months apart. One year we shared one present, a pair of roller skates that fit Amanda perfectly but left me hobbling awkwardly around the driveway. Another year, my name was written so small on the cake it looked like an afterthought. The message was clear. I wasn't worth celebrating individually. I was too quiet, too emotional, too much of everything they didn't want. Or maybe not enough. And yet, despite all this, I let them back in when Lily came along. I convinced myself it would be different this time. Maybe they'd see her, really see her, and love her unconditionally. At first, it seemed harmless. The comments about her offbeat clothes, the insistence that she hug relatives she didn't feel comfortable with. "Don't be rude, sweetie," my mom would say, forcing her arms around Uncle Bill. Then came the jokes from my dad about how she needed to toughen up when loud noises made her cry. When I tried to explain that Lily had sensory processing challenges, they rolled their eyes. "You're overreacting," they said. "She's fine." But she wasn't fine. And neither was I. Each comment chipped away at her confidence, each dismissal reinforced the hierarchy that kept them comfortable and us small. The turning point came when Amanda called me a snowplow parent during one particularly heated argument. "You're raising a future doormat," she sneered. That's when I realized they weren't going to change. Not for me, not for Lily. If anything, they saw her as another opportunity to repeat the same patterns they'd inflicted on me. So tonight, sitting in the dim glow of the kitchen light, I opened the folder. Inside were text messages, emails, screenshots of group chats where Lily was labeled difficult. There was a voice memo from Christmas 2 years ago, recorded accidentally by Daniel while capturing family moments. In it, my mom leaned toward Amanda and whispered, "Don't bother getting her anything nice. She never appreciates it anyway." They were talking about me. Tears blurred my vision as I added one last item to the folder, the sticky note from today. "Try harder next year." I slipped it into a clear sleeve, placing it right on top. It felt symbolic, like closing a chapter one should have ended years ago. Daniel watched silently as I tied the folder with a crimson ribbon I found in the junk drawer. It was ironic, it belonged to one of Amanda's kids' birthday parties. "Tomorrow," I said softly, more to myself than to him. "Tomorrow they would understand what it meant to cross this line." Afterward, I went to check on Lily. She was curled under the blanket Daniel gave her last Christmas, the one embroidered with the words, "You are safe. You are strong. You are loved." Her breathing was soft, rhythmic. For a moment, I envied her ability to sleep so peacefully despite everything. Then I kissed her forehead and whispered, "I won't let them hurt you anymore." Back in the living room, I stared at the cursor blinking on my laptop screen. At 4:07 a.m., I sent an email to the landlord managing Amanda's duplex. I explained that I would no longer be paying the monthly supplement we'd agreed upon unofficially. He replied within 20 minutes, "Understood." By 6:02 a.m. we had printed everything, texts, emails, screenshots, and bound them together with meticulous care. We drove to Amanda's house just as dawn broke, leaving the envelope on her doorstep without a word. As we walked away, I felt a strange mix of dread and relief. Dread because I knew this wouldn't end quietly. Relief because, for the first time, I was choosing Lily over them. Choosing myself. The sun was barely up when we heard it, a scream so raw, so primal, it seemed to tear through the quiet morning like a siren. It came from Amanda's house, sharp and unrelenting, followed by the faint murmur of voices outside her door. I didn't need to look out the window to know what had happened. The envelope we left on her doorstep last night had done its job. Within minutes, my phone buzzed incessantly, texts, calls, voicemails piling up faster than I could ignore them. My sister's name flashed across the screen over and over again, each notification more frantic than the last. What the hell is wrong with you? Read the first text in all caps, no punctuation, just rage spilling out in digital form. Then another, you think this is funny? You're ruining my life. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee untouched, staring at the messages but refusing to open them. Daniel placed a hand on my shoulder, his touch grounding me. Let her burn herself out, he said calmly. She'll run out of steam eventually. But Amanda wasn't one to give up easily. When the text stopped, the calls began. My mother joined in next, her voice trembling, not with sadness but with thinly veiled anger. How dare you do this to your own family? She demanded during our brief conversation. We've always been here for you and this is how you repay us? Mom, I interrupted, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. This isn't about repayment. This is about protecting my daughter. And myself. Her response was immediate, cutting. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. That bag was just a joke. You're blowing things out of proportion because you can't handle criticism. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself not to rise to the bait. Instead, I ended the call without another word. By noon, my inbox was flooded with messages. Some pleading, some accusatory, others outright hostile. But none of them mattered. What mattered was that they now understood something fundamental. I wasn't backing down. 2 days later, Amanda escalated. She created a fake social media account under someone else's name, posting old photos of me as a child alongside captions like, "Some people forget who raised them." Friends started tagging me in comments, asking if everything was okay. Strangers weighed in too, calling me ungrateful, selfish, dramatic. One anonymous message hit harder than the rest. Just remember, kids grow up one day. She'll know what you did. That line sent chills down my spine, but it also steeled my resolve. If Amanda thought she could manipulate me through fear, she was wrong. I gathered every piece of evidence I had, the emails, the screenshots, the voice memos, and forwarded them to law enforcement. Then I took an even bolder step. I sent copies to every member of our extended family. At first there was silence. Days passed without any acknowledgement. But then, slowly, the cracks began to show. A distant aunt reached out privately, apologizing for never seeing the signs. A cousin texted simply, "Good for you." Another relative admitted they'd suspected something was off for years but hadn't dared to speak up. By the end of the week, the truth was impossible to ignore. Someone leaked a recording of Amanda bragging about teaching Lily a lesson to a group chat. Screenshots of my parents' dismissive remarks about me circulated among cousins. Even Uncle Bill, who once joked about Lily needing to toughen up, messaged me to say he was sorry for everything. The turning point came during a chaotic Zoom call organized by my parents. Supposedly it was meant to mend fences, but instead, it became a reckoning. Relatives fired questions at my mom and dad. Why hadn't Emily been invited to Grandpa's birthday party? Why did Amanda keep dipping into the family emergency fund while everyone else struggled? The meeting devolved into arguments, accusations, and finally, tears. 4 people quietly exited the call before it ended, leaving my parents visibly shaken. Meanwhile, Amanda spiraled further. She posted a crying selfie online with the caption, "When your family turns on you," trying to rally sympathy. But the tide had already shifted. People saw through her act. They saw the receipts, the undeniable proof of how she and our parents had treated me and Lily. The weeks that followed felt like a storm finally breaking. Amanda's life unraveled in slow motion, each piece falling away with a kind of inevitability I couldn't help but watch from a distance. The landlord gave her 30 days to come up with the full rent or face eviction. Her car, already on shaky ground due to missed payments, was flagged for review by the loan company. She received a formal warning, another reminder that she was running out of options. But it wasn't just the practical fallout that struck her hardest. It was the isolation. One by one, extended family members began pulling away. Some stopped responding to her texts altogether. Others sent polite but distant replies. Even her closest friends seemed to grow quieter, unsure how to reconcile the version of Amanda they thought they knew with the woman who had weaponized cruelty against a 7-year-old child. At first, she tried to fight back, posting crying selfies online with captions like, "When your family turns on you," hoping for sympathy. But the tide had turned too far. People saw through her act now. They saw the receipts, the undeniable proof of what she'd done. Meanwhile, Lily blossomed. For the first time in months, maybe years, I noticed her shoulders relaxing. She no longer flinched at loud noises or hesitated before speaking her mind. At school, she made 2 new friends, Grace and Zoe, both sweet, curious girls who didn't laugh when she needed to cover her ears during fire drills or take breaks in the hallway. They accepted her exactly as she was, quirks and all. One evening, while helping her hang fairy lights around her bed, I caught sight of a painting propped against her desk. It was abstract, filled with swirling galaxies and soft pink comets. In bold black letters in the corner, she had written, "Safe is better than big." My breath caught as I read it. Those 5 words carried more weight than anything else anyone could have said about our journey. I knelt beside her, pulling her into a tight hug. "I love this," I whispered. "It's perfect." She smiled shyly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Do you think it's okay if my heart feels quiet now? She asked softly. Yes, I said, my voice thick with emotion. That means it's healing. Her bedtime routine became something sacred, an unspoken ritual of safety and calm. No more restless nights tossing and turning, no more tears soaking into her pillow. Instead, she fell asleep quickly, curled under the blanket Daniel had given her last Christmas, the one embroidered with the words, "You are safe. You are strong. You are loved." Then came the final blow, a message from Amanda late one afternoon. It arrived without warning, stark and cold against the otherwise quiet hum of my phone. Are you happy now? You won. I stared at the screen for a long moment, letting the words settle over me like ash. Did I win? The question lingered, heavy and complicated. Winning implied victory, triumph, but this wasn't about winning. This was about survival. About protecting the fragile, beautiful light inside my daughter before it could be extinguished. Slowly, deliberately, I set the phone down and walked to the window. Outside, Lily played in the backyard with Grace and Zoe, their laughter floating up like music. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden light across the grass. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to look back, not with bitterness but with clarity. I thought about the little girl I used to be, clutching a certificate for perfect attendance only to have it dismissed. I thought about the college freshman who sat alone in her dorm room, numb and invisible. And I thought about the mother I had become, the one who refused to let history repeat itself. No, I didn't win. I walked away. And walking away had been the hardest, bravest thing I'd ever done. That night, after Lily fell asleep with her galaxy painting propped against her bedside table, I sat in the living room staring at the fairy lights she had insisted on hanging earlier. They blinked softly, shifting colors from deep blue to warm pink, like a heartbeat made of light. Daniel joined me, handing me a mug of tea without a word. He didn't need to ask if I was okay because he knew I wasn't, not completely. But for the first time I felt something else alongside the ache. Clarity. Do you think I went too far? I asked him, my voice barely above a whisper. He tilted his head, considering the question carefully before answering. What's farther, letting them keep hurting her or stopping it? You did what you had to do. His words were simple but they carried weight. Still, I couldn't shake the lingering doubt. Would Lily understand someday why I chose this path? Or would she resent me for cutting ties with the people who were supposed to love us unconditionally? I thought about the message Amanda sent earlier. Are you happy now? You won. It wasn't just anger, it was accusation. And maybe there was truth in it. Maybe part of me wanted to win, to prove that I could protect my daughter when no one protected me. But winning wasn't the point. Survival was. The next morning, while Lily played outside with Grace and Zoe, I sat down to write something I'd been avoiding for weeks. A letter to myself, or maybe to anyone who might read this story one day. If it were your child, I began, would you have done the same? Would you have walked away? Fought back harder? Let it go? I paused, staring at the screen, wondering if I'd find answers buried somewhere in the pixels. If I'd gone too far, then so be it. Protecting Lily meant more than keeping peace. It meant breaking cycles. Cycles of neglect, of control, of emotional manipulation disguised as love. I remembered the sticky note Amanda left in her bag. Try harder next year. Those 5 words weren't just cruel. They were calculated, designed to chip away at Lily's confidence until there was nothing left. And I realized that setting boundaries wasn't just about saying no. It was about saying yes. To safety, to healing, to hope. Sometimes, protecting someone means sacrificing relationships. It means choosing between loyalty to the past and faith in the future. For years, I clung to the idea that family would change, that they'd see how much Lily needed love and acceptance. But they didn't. So I chose differently. I chose her. As I finished writing, Lily ran inside, flushed from playing in the sun. She held up a dandelion she'd picked from the yard. Look, Mom. A wish flower, she said, grinning. What are you going to wish for? I asked, smiling despite the lump forming in my throat. She closed her eyes tightly, blew on the dandelion, and watched as the seeds floated into the air. I wished for everything to stay safe forever, she said simply. Tears pricked my eyes, but I nodded. Good wish. Later that evening, we hung the last strand of fairy lights together. Lily stood on a step stool, giggling as she handed me pushpins. When we finished, she flipped the switch and the room lit up in soft, twinkling hues. She threw her arms around my neck. It's perfect, she whispered. And for the first time in years, I believed her.